Hello everyone, it's Łukasz here from Tokenomia.pro, and today we are going to talk about the DAO. Let's start. So, what is DAO? We start with unpacking all of the three letters, and then we are going to talk about each one of them, and at the end I will give you practical examples of what does it actually mean. So, let's start with this one. Actually, the DAO itself, the first letter stands for decentralized. And what does it mean that this is decentralized? So, well, first of all, there is no central entity, meaning that if you think about the organization itself, normally it's always about one central entity that is governing the whole operation and decision making. And here there is no central entity. And we'll talk about the organization stuff at the end because there is like plenty to talk about. And this is actually one of the most important topics here. The second point about decentralized is everything around decentralized infrastructure. It means that when it comes to the infrastructure itself, so how you are hosting your proposals, especially your voting process and the history of the votes itself, they are on the blockchain, or there are also some examples from the solutions that maybe they are not on a chain, meaning that the whole history is not written down in the blockchain, but they're still decentralized because the history of the voting itself is on the decentralized storage, which is a little bit too advanced topic for now. So let's jump to another one, which is about distribution of the power. So decentralization here means that when you think about the people that are part of the DAO itself, the power when it comes to voting is distributed, and it's distributed. So let's write it down. Its power is distributed across token holders. And this is really, really, really important thing about all of this stuff, because this is like totally different model where if you think about normal, like standard organization, there is only like limited group of people that have power and authority to decide and vote, which is totally different when it comes to DAO. And decentralization here means also that there is a distribution, decentralization of this authority and power to make some decisions. Okay, well, the second point that is really important here, the second letter is about autonomous. So DAOs are autonomous, and what exactly does it mean? So when you think about autonomous and the definition of this word, it's actually pretty straightforward. It means that the DAOs are independent. They are independent from all of the external factors that can influence their voting process, for example, or their strategy, goals, and so on and so on. So this is a really, really important factor here. Of course, in reality, it can be somehow bypassed. But if you think about running a DAO or participating in DAO, these are really important factors and value that are behind the DAO itself. And you can actually evaluate the DAO. Are they holding to this value? Do they hold these values? And if yes, then it means that it's really healthy DAO, and it's probably a good idea to join and contribute there. The second point that is really important here, it's all about the fact that autonomy here also means that the DAOs are self-governing. What does it mean, self-governing? Well, as I said before in the example, normally you have some centralized, limited group of people that do make decisions on someone's behalf. And here, and we will go back later to the word governance, the decentralized autonomous organizations are self-governing, meaning that there is no top-down decision-making, but it's actually quite the opposite. There is bottom-up decision-making. People in the DAO can make the proposals. People in the DAO can vote on them. And actually, this is what it means that there is self-governing process when it comes to the decentralized organization. And the last one it's, the last letter is about the organization. And actually, this is the most challenging part of the DAO itself. And basically, why is that? So if you think about the traditional top-down organization, here's what it looks like, right? So basically, if you think about the organization itself, what does it mean? It means that there is like a group of people that is organizing itself in some way in order to proceed to some goal with all of the resources that they do have. And then, of course, as you might think, there is a challenge in terms of who is going to decide, right? Who is going to propose actually some steps. And normally this poses a huge challenge in organizations, in the governments as well. So traditional top-down organization works basically like that, right? There is like a CEO on the top, some management, and staff at the bottom. And there is like one legal entity. The contracts between the people are done through employment contracts, and incentives in order to motivate the people inside this small ecosystem of organization that we are creating are done through salaries that are paid by the organization itself. So this is normally how does it looks like, and this is the organization part. So the DAOs are working in a totally opposite way. They work in a way where, as you can see here, the organization of the people that are organized around some goal is, well, decentralized. So, as you mentioned, there is no central legal entity. There is and what is really important, there are tokens that act as an incentive for contributors. And this is coming off, obviously, from the fact that we are talking about the organization on top of the blockchain itself. So if we are talking about the blockchain, then there are tokens or native tokens that we can use in order to incentivize people in our organization, or even let them in if they hold tokens because, for example, they earn it through contributing to our decentralized organization. So let's maybe get back to our mind map. And when it comes to the organization, so here is the keyword exactly, like the governance. The governance is a field of study like by itself. It's a really, really challenging topic that is trying to understand how different models of collective decision making works, what are the cons, what are the pros, and so on. So here is also the challenge here when it comes to decentralization. Then if you think about the governance and the fact that people are that everything is decentralized and there is a distribution of power across different people that are anonymous, it's even more challenging than in the typical world. So within the whole governance process, what is also really important, it's of course people. And if you think about it, then there is a field of study which is called behavioral economics. Let me maybe write it down and zoom out it for you. Yeah. So there is a whole field about behavioral economics. What does it mean? It means that behavioral economics is telling us about the fact that people are not rational, right? So behind our decision-making process, we are not so rational as we may thought. And that most likely, and it is proved by research, that actually most likely, even if we are aware of the flaws of our decision-making process, most likely we are just, if we must think about it, and if we must to take decision really, really fast, then it's basically the snap judgment of the situation. We are getting back to our history, to all of our cognitive biases and so on. And this is how we actually making a decision, which is obviously not good. And there are a couple of cognitive biases that also play a huge role in the governance process itself here. But I do think that it's not for this video, so let's bear with me. And just the point here is that the governance process, it's challenging mainly because of the people and how our brain work when it comes to the decision making itself as a single entity. But if we will take it even to a group level, so as a collective, is even more challenging. Okay, so about the governance, what is important in terms of the DAOs itself is the fact that we need to actually understand how to make proposals. So there are different models. Like ultimately, the DAOs should allow everyone in the community to make some proposals around the, for example, budget and the next steps for the whole organization. Then the next important point is actually who can vote. So obviously it's the voting power should be assigned to the people that are meeting some criteria, and most likely those criteria are basically the simplest one are about token holders from the DAO itself. Then another point is really important one when there is all of the discussions happening, all of the discussions about the challenges of DAO, most of the discussions about the challenges of the DAO are basically here, which is about the voting power and voting system. What does it mean? First of all, it means, well, if we will issue a token for the DAO and so on, so how we are going to calculate how much of the voting power have some token holder. For example, if we are going to count it like 1-to-1, meaning that, okay, if you have 100 tokens, then it means that you have 100 voting power. Like, is it fair? Is it going to work? So this is the whole debate and a lot of experiments happening here in the field. So how to actually calculate the voting power for token holders. And there is plenty of different mechanisms. Like, for example, you can think only about the voters. You can think about the people that actually took the tokens to your staking protocols and lock them up for some period of time. And maybe you want to incentivize these people because by their locking up for a long time, they explicitly said that, hey, I believe in your project, so that's why I'm locking my resources. And then maybe they should have more voting power. But then if you have like so-called whales, so people with a lot of tokens, maybe it can appear that they will have too much of the power and there will be no incentive for new people to actually come in and vote. So this is like plenty of different discussion topics, but today we are just covering the basics. So let's stay here. The second point, so the models. So we are talking about the models for voting power. Another point is about the model for voting on proposals. What does it mean? This is also interesting topic because the one thing is, okay, how much voting power do I have? And then if there is some proposal, then what will be the model for the voting? So we can have like single choice voting, we can have quadratic voting, we can have like ranked voting, etc., etc. So there are different models, and the models for the voting itself are also really important in the context of how we are going to actually make sure that our voting model is healthy in a way that no one can actually impact the voting results. This is a whole field of science itself, where plenty of DAOs trying to figure it out, and we can deep dive on it in the next videos. But for now, I would say these are the most important thing for you to know for today. So let's wrap it up. What is DAO in practical terms? In practical terms, DAO is a group of people that are sharing the same values, the same goals, and they are collectively work together, having some resources in order to achieve some mission and goals. This is it. And the DAO, when it comes to the block technology context itself, of course, it relies on the blockchain or on other decentralized solutions in order to keep these values of being decentralized and autonomous, something that we talked before. So if you look at the DAO landscape right now, as you can see, there are different tools that you may use, and there are also different types of DAOs. So there are protocol DAOs, meaning that, okay, these are the DAOs that are going to decide around the development of some specific protocol. There are DAOs that are like grants DAOs that are going to decide about, hey, so we have some treasury and we want to give a grant to some specific projects. So yeah, let's decide to whom we are going to give a grant and how many of it. There are also like service DAOs and media DAOs, social DAOs, and so on and so on. So as you can see, there is like plenty of different goals that DAOs can gather around, get some resources, and actually decide together around how we are going to achieve this goal, which is really exciting and also inspiring. So to give you an example, some practical like case, here there is like one of the platforms, it's snapshot.org. I think this is right now one of the most popular one. Probably it's because when it comes to voting, it's for free because it's not happening on chain. It's happening on the interplanetary file system. But this is maybe something that we'll talk about in future. Anyway, as you can see, like the top projects are actually making use of snapshot.org. And what is it? Here we can find plenty of different DAOs. Here we can find their proposals in the past, what were the voting here. Here you can find actually the active proposals, like here the AF protocol. There is a proposal about pausing ETH borrowing because of the upcoming merge. And there is the whole description about the proposal, the discussion on the forum. And then there is actually the vote itself. And as you can see, there are like different strategies here. So I've developed their own strategies around how to calculate the voting power. And as you can see, there is voting system, which is single choice voting. What does it mean? It means, okay, so the AF protocol have their own idea how to calculate the voting power, but then when it comes to this particular proposal, there is a single choice voting system, meaning that from all of the possible options, I can choose only one vote. So all of my voting power are going to only one vote. And this is more or less briefly how does it look like also in practice. So to wrap it up, thank you very much for this one. I hope you like it. If you do have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and see you later. Bye.